You are running with the Devils. Welcome to our season finale of 2023. I'm the Rhino, Ryan Knowles, here with me as always, Big John Caldwell.
Right, all right.
Big
All right.
John, a rough end to a rough end to a rough season as the Devils finish 3-9 for the second straight year, falling just in a bad way to their rivals from down south, the Arizona Wildcats. And we'll get into that game, of course. But we got to talk about the ASU's upcoming off season. It goes in quotes because there is no off season. If you're a true ASU fan, we're going to be following, all the news with the comings and goings with the transfer portal and who's coming in, who's going out. It's a whole soap opera of an off season, as always in college football, especially with now NIL deals getting thrown into the mix. A lot of moving parts, Big John, and we'll be here to talk about it all. I mean, already some dominoes have fallen as of today. I mean, that transfer portal is not even open until Monday, and already there's some news to report on that, and we'll certainly get into it here. We'll talk about. We won't spend too much time on the game, obviously, because it kind of speaks for itself. But we'll get into that quite a bit. We'll recap the season a little bit. With our end of the season awards. But we got to start with obviously the game from the off season begins. Yeah, for Coach Kenny Dillingham and his staff should be interesting to see kind of how things play out over the coming months. But we'll certainly start with last Saturday's game as ASU falls to the U of A 59-23 as Arizona quarterback Noah Fafita. I mean, this kid has kind of come out of nowhere, the sophomore, and really taken hold of that job for the Wildcats. I mean, he's probably the best quarterback that they've had there in what, 10 years?
Since Foles, probably better than as good as Foles.
Even Foles wasn't even. I didn't even think he was that good in college, but he was. I mean, certainly good enough to lead them.
He wasn't the dual threat.
No, he was not. And Fafita's active. I mean, he's a decent athlete, but even he's not. He prefers to stay in the pocket and throw. Sure. So, he had himself a big game. It set a Territorial Cup record with 527 yards passing the goal with 5 touchdowns, and he didn't even play the whole game either. I mean, they just carved up ASU's defense like a Thanksgiving turkey, as they just absolutely went off. Tedero and McMillan had 11 catches for 266 yards and a touchdown. Seemed like he was 10, 15 yards open almost every time they threw him the ball. Same goes for Jacob Cowing, who we didn't even mention on here. He had 9 catches for 157 yards and a touchdown. Their tight end, Tanner McLaughlin, had 2 touchdown catches. So a lot of stats, a lot of numbers, a lot of stat fillers to go around for this U of A offense in this game. And Big John, where do you go from here if you're an ASU fan?
Well, I mean, guys, you have to recognize the fact that a first-year coach who got here as late as he did, who had to
inherited a mess.
He inherited a mess and had to bring in a lot of portal kids. Yeah, obviously, he didn't want to try to bring in a lot of kids who were just, to fill out a uniform. He tried to give some consideration to who might actually be here for a while and who might develop into a player. But, I mean, we played a team who went from 1 win to 9
years ago. Yep, they were 1-11. That's right.
Yeah, and here they are now, with 9, and they, quite frankly, they did it by bringing in a bunch of freshmen who they brought them in here saying, you're going to play, you're going to get playing time, right? That was the promise of why they came here. And they got playing time.
They developed them. They did things the right way. They brought them in. They developed them. I mean, they got some transfer portal kids who have come in and contributed certainly, but at the same time, they brought in. They had some homegrown talent too. Some guys they brought in, developed as freshmen, and now they're starting to see dividends with what they're doing. Jed Fish and company have done a good job there. As much as it these words taste like vinegar coming out of my mouth, but U of A football has kind of turned a corner. It seems like they're going to be set up to assuming everything kind of stays where it is going to be.
I've talked to
for a couple of years at least.
I've talked to former coaches from U of A who were very respected people at what they did, who have big jobs now. They're still in the football game. Yeah. And these guys have told me if it comes down to a kid who wants to decide between ASU and U of A, ASU should win almost every time, because just
You would
based on
think.
the whole package, the facilities, you know, the great college experience this represents up here. So, yeah, I think we're going to get our players, and we're not getting 5 stars this year. U of A didn't either. They developed these kids, right?
Mhm.
Um, so
Very true.
where do we go from here? You got to accept the fact this was we were in a rebuild, just like pro teams go through rebuilds. We're going through a rebuild, and but you have to see. We'll talk about some of the better games ASU had this year and why those you can draw from a couple of these games some really good things in terms of culture and the way the creativity of the coaching staff to work around an unprecedented amount of injuries, guys. To
Sure.
have 14 players not even be able to suit up at the UCLA game, that I've never heard that kind of number before. That's crazy.
Sure. It was very high. And then you had a couple guys who were at least going to be rotation guys who
Mhm.
got ruled ineligible. I mean, you had a crucial offensive lineman in Ben Coleman, go out during the spring. You had one of your kind of your glue guys on the offensive line, Emmett Boley, go down in the first game. You know, yeah, the dominoes just seemed to kept falling and falling and falling, and it kept getting worse and worse and worse. It felt like the longer things went, and especially on the offensive line, I think that's kind of where you need to start. And we'll talk about the recruiting and everything, but it seemed like there were some crazy numbers out of this game. I mean, the only bright spot for ASU, frankly, was Cam Scattaboo, who had 7 carries for 108 yards and that touchdown in the first quarter. And then, but Jaden Rashada, I mean, finally made his long-awaited return. He hadn't played since Oklahoma State in week 2, and he didn't really look that good. I mean, he stared
No,
down his receivers. He looked rusty, quite frankly.
he looked like he wasn't ready. Wasn't
Yeah,
ready
he
at
did,
all.
and he didn't play in the first quarter because he was late to a team meeting that
He
week.
well, he was named the starter and then
Right.
missed late for the meeting, and that just tells me either one, he had checked out, or two, he's just his judgment faculties are terrible.
Yeah.
And and so either way, I couldn't
Priorities.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't see anything good coming out of it. But he clearly wasn't ready physically. I mean, he was throwing the ball all over the
Yeah,
park.
and he kind of stared down his receivers. There were a couple times where he had guys open and he didn't get them in stride, or he threw them behind him.
Well,
He overthrew them.
well,
It was always something.
I tell you, we were in the game still after
Yeah.
the first quarter, and he threw the interception, and they turned that into. He threw that, by the way, into almost triple coverage,
Hmm.
and they turned right around and went 70 yards down the field and scored on it. That was, and by the way, at that point, you could tell they had sort of broke our spirit. But that was the key point to me. The key point in the game was the first interception that he threw.
Because this was a 10-7 game after the
That's right.
first quarter.
Yep.
And then
And we
Arizona
and we were
comes
driving.
back, and Arizona comes back, scores 28 points in the second quarter.
That was a
Put
14
the game out of reach in the first half.
14-point switch on the pick. Yeah, really. I
Yeah,
mean, it wasn't instantaneous, but to me,
I
that
agree.
and rewatching, I said, you know what, man, you talk about a momentum shifter right there. Huge.
Yeah, and there's been some rumblings of Rashada transferring, chasing a bigger NIL deal elsewhere. I
Mm.
mean, he's certainly got the arm talent. I mean, you saw it earlier in the year. He looks like he's worthy of the rating. He certainly looks like a program starting quarterback for somebody. You know, but is it here? I mean, we'll find out here in the next few months. I certainly hope so. I certainly like to see him come back. Hopefully, have a little bit better attitude about everything. But especially with his whole college tenure, his exit out of Florida to his time here, his high school injury that suddenly came up again. He had to have surgery for, and then coming on late in the year again. I don't
Yes,
know what
right.
to make of him. He's so kind of
It's even more
divisive.
complicated than that. Yeah,
Divisive. Yeah.
he transferred 3 times in high school, 3 times.
Hmm.
He committed to Florida State and then committed to Florida. The whole
Oh,
$13 million NIL thing, that was like guys like you and me sitting in the bar making up stories. Somebody overheard it and they ran. Became a classic game of telephone, and it
wow.
got all blown into it. It got completely. It was all puff. It was all blown in out of out of whack. And my
Not
point is,
surprised.
and so yeah, he's been chasing dollars and fame ever since the beginning. But I'm looking at it as a Twitter account. If you really want that big money, you got to have more than 13,000 followers. Okay, seriously, 13.6 thousand on Twitter. I haven't even looked
Well,
at his Instagram.
to get online,
Yeah.
yeah, to get
Well,
online, online endorsements and whatnot.
yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. But at the same time, you still got to perform on the field, and
Mhm.
that means making a commitment in the weight room, classroom, film room.
Yeah.
And he, I don't know, I just don't, I just haven't seen it necessarily, especially with the way, like you talked about how unprepared it seemed like he was for
Yeah.
this game. And if you're serious about wanting to be the quarterback for this program, you got to act like it. I mean, you got to go out there and show everybody that you still want to be the guy. You want to be here, and you want to make this job and this program
Yeah.
yours. And he clearly
Commitment.
did. I mean, by his
Commit.
performance, I mean, 10 of 22, 82 yards and a touchdown, but with those two bad interceptions that U of A turned around into points. You can't, with the way this offense was rolling, U of A's offense was rolling, you cannot give them free possessions
No.
because they're going to
No.
turn around and turn them into points,
That's
especially with the
right.
way ASU's defense had been
Yep.
playing.
Yep. Yep.
So just a
Yep.
bad scene the whole way around. I mean, we're going to be monitoring this closely. Certainly, we'll be back in the spring to talk more recruiting as it comes down. We like having our spring special here right after spring ball
Right.
to kind of recap everything that's happened up to that point. Kind of give you a kind of a bird's eye overhead view of the program leading into fall. But at the same time, there's a lot of question marks coming into this offseason,
Mm-hmm.
particularly who's going to be the quarterback next year. Because as much as we like Trenton Bourget, we like Trenton Bourget a lot. We love the Bourget family. We're Bourget fans the whole way around, the whole clan. Love you guys, but he's not a long-term answer at
Well,
quarterback. He's just not. He's not. Listen, I love his head for the game. He's going to make a great coach one day, believe me. But he's not durable enough. The arm he can't throw the ball downfield.
I, watched.
There's limitations with Trent.
I went back and watched that game twice, and again the U of A, he was throwing some BBs, man, and he's throwing tight balls in tight places. But
Well, and
it's not.
I don't doubt his accuracy. His
Yeah.
accuracy is probably his best attribute when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to being a quarterback. Aside from his head for the game, his pre snap vision, his ability to get everybody lined up correctly. I mean, there's a lot to like when
He's
it comes to
quick,
Trenton Bourget as
quick reads.
quarterback.
Yeah, very quick
But
read.
he's got to be healthy enough to do it. There were times this year where he looked like he was playing on one foot, basically. And you can't go through a season like that again, especially with how things happened last year. I mean, he was hurt for part of last year too when he took over the job.
Yeah, and just so everybody's clear, that what the ankle injuries this year, one on each ankle, had nothing to do with the foot injury, the bone injury he had last year. He had a screw in his foot that was coming out of the skin.
Durability is an issue, and I think that's kind of a big limitation for him being a starting quarterback in this for this program.
Yeah.
I think you might need to go if Jaden Rashada doesn't have a change in attitude and the coaching staff doesn't feel confident that he can be the guy going forward. You might need to go back to the drawing board and go to the transfer portal again to try to find somebody because you got Dante Moore from UCLA just entered the portal. J.U. Aguilera, he's in the
Oregon State. Yep.
So there's guys to be had out there. You're getting a guy in 25 who could potentially be your quarterback of the future, but you don't have a quarterback in this freshman class for 24. Mm-hmm. So
not yet.
You might have to go out and try to pull one from somewhere. Because this quarterback room right now is looking a little thin because Drew Pine, clearly not the guy. Jacob Conover, truly not the guy. What's left at that point? Trent Bourget is good. He's serviceable. He gives you a chance to win. But again, limitations there. And then you got a big old question mark in Jaden Rashada.
But here's the good thing about a top quarterback, a freshman quarterback you're bringing in here. You could say, hey, you're going to commit. You're going to have a great opportunity to play right away. Look what we did with
Sure.
Rashada.
Yeah.
Look how we treated Rashada. He got every opportunity, and in the last week of camp, he was moved to QB1. And my point of that,
And he got everything he wanted too, as far
right?
as NIL and whatnot. He got everything he could have asked for.
hmm Well,
Yeah.
there's it's at a certain point you have to say how much is enough to
Yeah.
have a good college
Oh,
experience.
totally. And hey, if you ask Matt Rule, it's a 1.5 to $2 million.
Yeah, I saw that today.
But
Yeah.
but we'll cross that bridge when it comes. But just kind of closing the book on this game. U of A had some extra motivation. Jed Fish made a point to mention that 2020 game when ASU beat them 70-7.
Yeah.
It seems like a far cry here. I mean, the tables really have turned from where these programs were compared to then. But hey, 36 points is a far cry from 63. I'll just say that. And
hmm
as good as U of A is, and as clear as day as it was that they were the superior team on Saturday, and this is what I told all the U of A fans who were talking crap and who were bragging and all this. It's like, hey, joy while it lasts, because it won't. ASU will not be down for long. They're trending in the right direction. They're on the
Right.
come up. Enjoy this while it lasts, because ASU is not going to be down forever.
No.
It may not be next year, but I'm looking at 25. CKD's third year. You always look
Yep.
at your coach's third year as
Yep.
far as what they can do, and that's the year I'm pointing to as far as what ASU can do if they can continue on this path, developing players, continue to bring some quality guys in.
hmm
That's the year you're looking at and can make
He
make noise.
he's been very consistent. His very first press conference, and he gave me 3 years to get my guys in here. He said it right away, and he knew. He said,
That should be the benchmark for most college coaches.
yeah,
Especially one like this. It's kind of a, I don't want to call us we're in the mid Power Five. I mean, we certainly have a better market than most of the Power Five, but
yeah,
it's I won't get into it in too much detail, but basically there's things here that other schools don't have,
no,
and that it's a draw for recruits, and
mm,
so I'm hoping that will come to the forefront, and ASU will be able to get some guys, that'll come in here and make some noise. And I point to this line when it comes to recruiting. If you ever seen the old movie Blue Chips about basketball recruiting, you have horses, you have good players, good solid players, guys who can do some good things for you. What you need now are thoroughbreds. You need some great players, some
hmm
NFL caliber guys who can come in and be game breakers for you. Be guys that can take your program from good to great. Can take you from the middle of the conference, middle of the pack, to that upper echelon top three. Put you in contention for a conference championship. Those are the kinds of players that I'm hoping Kenny Dillingham can go out and get. Fingers crossed, knock on wood,
Well,
all that
it
stuff.
appears as if we're already been working on Texas and Louisiana pretty well.
Yeah.
And
If you look at the recruits, yeah, if you go, we don't have the graphic here, but obviously, we're not going to get too much into that. But this is certainly something that,
that's
as
what they're signed.
we
Yeah.
close the book on U of A and we move on here to things that we learned. We're going to talk about more of this. I'm sorry that we're getting off topic. This is a favorite topic of mine, is college recruiting.
Right.
And, certainly when it comes to ASU, I like looking at the future Sun Devils
It's the
and what
lifeblood.
they can bring to the program. Yes, it is the lifeblood, and certainly
hmm
something that we'll certainly get into in here in a minute. But we got to close the book on U of A. Let's just turn the page on this game, because it was ugly. But things we learned: hey, Wildcats like this brand of Wildcats likes to run their mouths. I mean, if you watch them
hmm
on the sidelines, posing for pictures, doing the forks down, and having that pitchfork with the footballs and the Sparky through it,
Yeah.
and they like to show themselves off here. And they talked about it on the TV broadcast from the 70-7 game. Coaches keep receipts. You don't tell me CKD and his staff aren't keeping a pile of receipts from this game. They're going to see these guys again here in the Big 12, and
hmm
it's going to be a game that matters. Guarantee
Yeah.
you right now, when these teams are a little more evenly matched. And I'm telling you, ASU, if they have the opportunity, they're not going to take their foot off the gas.
No.
because I mean, as much as U of A was embarrassed in their own home by ASU in '77, there was really nobody in the stands
Right.
at the time. They had a lame duck coach. It was, basically a lame duck team.
Mm-hmm.
And ASU did that, when they forced turnovers, they ran the ball. They were doing it with like third and fourth team scout team guys. I mean, they basically let their fifth string running back.
We
The,
had a we had a
Asian
Chinese
the Asian yeah,
we had a
the
Chinese
Asian
dude, fifth string
yeah,
Chinese dude score on you guys. Don't give me this.
yes. I mean, don't this is not, this is not the same thing. Okay. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. 36 points is not 63. This game was, the ASU was in this game at one point. Didn't feel like U of A, even from the opening kickoff, was ever in that game in 2020 when
No.
DJ Taylor took it back for a touchdown. The
Right,
route
right.
was on from the opening kickoff. This was a 10-7 game after the first quarter. Yeah, it turned into a laugher. I'll give you that. But ASU did not quit. They did not let it they did not let U of A put 70 points up on the board like Jed Fish wanted them to.
Mm-hmm.
Like it seemed like they were trending towards. They didn't quit. U of A quit on their coach. It's a big difference.
Yeah.
Big difference.
Yep.
So yeah, and that's my other point too. The Sun Devils fight for 4 quarters. I like to make the joke that you should never make change with a U of A football player because they only give you 3 quarters.
No.
They were the better team on Saturday. I'll admit it. I'll own up to it. We both picked U of A to win. Okay, but you can't get ASU will never not fight for 4 quarters, even in defeat. And that was the hallmark of this team this year. And as bad as they were, I still say this: there was a silver lining. ASU during the preseason was picked to finish 10th.
Mm-hmm.
They finished 9th. So
right.
I mean, there's always something you can look at and say, hey, this team fought. I certainly don't want to hang my hat on that by any stretch, but I mean, things could have been worse.
Mm-hmm.
Look at U of A in 2021 when they went 1-11. Things can always be worse, but believe me, for ASU, I think this is about as rock bottom as they will get, and they'll be on the come up next year. Trust me.
Yeah. Well, and we can play the woulda, shoulda, coulda game, but there's clearly 3 games in this season where one play near the end decided things.
Oh yeah,
Cal Washington.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about those.
Cal Washington and
we have our
postseason
awards coming up here, and yeah, we'll get into all that. Believe me.
Yeah, we could have been 6 games. I think there's both where we set our gauge.
We both said 5 and 7.
5 and 7. Well, so like I say, we were 1 play away in 3 different games. To being right there. Now, Colorado, we were set up for the tie, and then they got the late pick, the late
overtime.
Pick.
Yes,
overtime. Yeah. Anyway, that those are solid points, Ryan. I completely agree. And for kids to start running their mouth after, this is not they're not trending. Okay, you had a game last year that went right down to the last series that we could have won. You got you jumped.
Yeah, that game down in Tucson last year. After that, we got that 4th down stop.
Yeah, right.
And we had the ball back with time left.
Dude,
that game could have just as easily gone the other way.
You can make the point that we were winning without even having a quarterback in the game. Okay, and once you knew that we had to put a quarterback in, things kind of went sour. I mean, that's the first pick that Rashada threw to me was like, oh, here we go. It was a 14-point swing, but we were going down to take the lead, and threw in the triple cover. So listen, I'm not going to do the woulda, coulda, shoulda thing, but we're it's not like it was a complete travesty of a season that and nobody was trying. You're right. People fought. Kids bought in, and I use the word culture. All right, the culture to me is apparent. And you could see them for the first half of the season getting better and better.
And that's the foundation. That's the groundwork of any great program. You got to start somewhere, and the culture, the attitude, the buy-in. That's exactly it.
We obviously while Scadaboo was our running guy this year, and we got some contribution here and there from newcomers, but it's like we are going to have to get better at running the ball. We really are like dominant at running the ball. And quite frankly, Scadaboo became a marked man, in my opinion. There was somebody always spying him. And
teams were geared towards stopping him, especially I think
yes,
after that USC game when he kind of showed what he's capable of and how
hmm
much this offense relies on him.
right.
Yeah, I agree. This kind of became just stop this guy, stop the team
Yeah, he's
more than
not Reggie Bush, but he as far as
who
freakish
is.
athletics. Now, yeah, that's a once in a 30-year kind of guy. But my point is the culture of never quitting, keep improving, running the
Yeah,
ball hard, playing tough D. Those are all established right now, and everybody's bought in. And then, as I say, U of A built their program by getting their guys, getting freshmen who they could promise playing time to. We can
hmm.
do the same thing, and we can do better. So I'm not. This is not the sky is falling, guys. We're going to be fine. We're not going to go through all 16 or 17 commits, but because it's very dynamic, and we
No,
don't like to.
that's what our spring specials for. Our recruit,
By
our
then
recruiting.
they've signed. Yeah,
Yeah,
after signing day, we'd like to get into that. So anyway,
because guys can decommit just as easily. So,
well, I'm going to
um,
point some and to people who are we should maybe talk about who's in the portal, right?
yeah,
Real
yeah.
quick.
Some names came down today. I mentioned it during the opener, and yeah, I mean, not completely unsurprising given what we know, what we hear, from coaches and from people who are close to the team. You know, Jalen Conyers, love the guy at times. I mean, last year he looked like an absolute beast. Looked like he was going to be, another Zach Miller potentially. Um, and he looked like he was going to, set the world on fire this year. There were times where he, just didn't look like he was ready to play. Didn't have it between the ears.
That's right.
Yeah, he just
And he
he did.
never
He
really.
looked he looked like I mean he looked like Snoopy out there. You pet him and he goes down
The
a
book the
couple
book
times.
was if you get him in the lower leg, he's going down, right? Whereas last year
You
he ran
can't.
through
You
him.
want to be an NFL tight end. You got to be able to run through some of that stuff.
That's right. Yeah,
And
and
he just I was a little bit disappointed by his play this year. And he's now he's in the portal.
well,
It's unfortunate to see Jordan Clark go
right.
as well. He made some plays at times this year, just like he did in 2022. He looked like,
Yeah,
oh my gosh, probably the
yeah.
best nickel corner I think anybody's ever seen. I think his natural position is more safety, but
hmm
he was such a good tackler. They like playing him up near the line of scrimmage. And but there were some plays he made 2 years ago that I mean, some of the best defensive plays I think anybody coming through
I
this
agree.
program.
I think he really held that secondary together, and there was a
Yeah,
lot of accountability because of him being sort of a field general out there. But I'm just
yeah.
going to say, guys, well, and there's a
Didn't
few
really
other
fill up the
guys.
stat sheet as much this year
Yeah,
with his play, but still a very very solid player.
well, he
I
was.
don't think that
I think he
anybody's going to
was
deny that.
second in tackles. I think behind
Mm,
um, maybe third. Yeah,
oh, you're talking about for the DBs?
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
for the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
DBs, yeah, 50 tackles on the year,
51.
pass deflections. I mean, yeah, the guy. I mean, he didn't get an interception this year, but
Nobody
still
did.
decent numbers. Certainly, it's certainly a tough guy that you hate to lose as a veteran, one of the
Right.
captains on this team. Tough to lose. He's a bigger loss than Conyers if putting them,
Yeah.
comparing them. But then we knew about some of the other guys in
Well, you knew that.
who would basically quit the team by
Right.
mid season and we're
Right.
ready to going to go in the portal anyway. And I
hmm
mean Isaiah Johnson was basically kicked off the team before the season even started.
Right.
Um, Will Schaefer, a
hmm
few games in, kind of threw in the towel.
We didn't have a third linebacker position for him to play
Yeah,
either.
yeah.
But
I mean,
but I'm
probably could have used him. Probably could have used him, for depth. Um, middle part of the
hmm
year when Travion Brown went down. But as we digress, and then Isaiah Glass didn't and not doesn't make the trip to Utah, and we come to
hmm
find out he's also going in the portal as
yeah.
well. So
So I'm going to just point something out though, folks. The same exact time last year, we had three defensive linemen who said they were going in the portal, who came back. So take this with a grain of salt. We had B.J. Green, Anthony Cooper, and we had Stansberry. All were going to the portal, and they all came back. And remember, what happens in the portal? If you don't like, the offers you're getting, you can say no. Now you have to reapply and readmit because your spot is officially gone off the team. They have to want you back, and it's not as easy as you think. But by the way, financially, the day you enter that portal, you are cut off from scholarship, per diems, food, parking, all the stuff. It's life gets it,
Yeah,
suddenly
all
it's
the perks, all the things that you get as an ASU football player.
Yep.
Uh,
You figure out what's the difference between TV and reality.
Yeah,
TV and reality.
You're out there on an island all by yourself, kind of hailing ships to stop and let you on board.
Welcome to the real world
for a lot of guys. Yeah. So but I mean, this is the first full season of recruiting for Kenny Dillingham. Be interesting to see what he does now with a full off season. They've already gotten like 19 recruits for 2020, 16 recruits, I should say, for 2024. We won't get into those guys too much, just because again, kids are fickle. They could decommit just as easily, especially if there's staff changes, which I mean they've already been. So it was announced this week, Bo Baldwin, the offensive coordinator, is not coming back, which is not a huge surprise, seeing as how Kenny Dillingham took over play calling from him earlier this year. Offense was historically bad, one of the worst in the history of the school. I mean, I don't think since 1988 they've averaged fewer points.
Right.
So, you got to expect changes on a 3-9 team, on the staff. And Kenny Dillingham, he's going to be fine tuning this team. Coming off his first year, he's going to try to get some more guys, maybe upgrade in positions where possible. I'd be interested to see what he does going forward here. Yep. And as time marches on, things are going to change. That's a fact of life, and certainly in football, where things change at the drop of a hat. You could see some guys you may not expect go, and I mean other guys, could just as easily stay and could go and come back, right, as we saw last year. It happens.
I have somebody who's close to the program, who used to play for the program. He's not on staff. But somebody whose opinion I value, saying that there probably will be one more position coach. Don't be surprised if there's one more position coach change here, and that's okay. That's okay. That's quite normal in college football.
And then you had a couple guys in Joey Ramos and Travion Brown, a couple of solid contributors this year. Travion Brown, I mean, it looked like the defense was a whole nother animal when he was in the game. He missed 2 games this year. Still finished 3rd on the team in tackles. Right. Had a nice interception this year as well. Half a sack. It filled up the stat sheet pretty well. Played his position really well. Very good run stuffer. Came up when he came up the A gap. Look out, because he put some pressure on that quarterback if they didn't pick him up.
It was designed, well designed.
Yeah. So he was a nice player. Joey Ramos. He's kind of a swing guy after, getting hurt in the first game last year, coming back this year and kind of playing all over. I mean, he looked like he was going to be a guard at the beginning of the year, moved to tackle when Emmett Boley got hurt, and played his position extremely well. So he's going on to the NFL. So
I could see somebody taking a I don't know if he's going to get drafted. I can certainly see there could be a fit out there, especially how well he pulls.
Yeah, and the fact that he has versatility, I think, makes him
versatility.
He can play either guard, either tackle spot. He certainly can. I think he projects more as a guard. In the NFL. He certainly got the size to do it. But I think the teams like versatility. If you can save them a roster spot by being able to play multiple positions, that's added value that they're going to consider when they talk about final cuts.
Yeah, it's all about fit. Right, it's all about fit from here forward for a guy like that.
I agree.
So, you want to get started?
Of course. Yeah, let's our end of season awards.
Player of the year.
Yeah, our end of season awards. We'll start on offense. Our player of the year. We did not collaborate on this before we posted. I kind of write up those kind of some of the talking points, and then put in my opinion for some of the things. Just give you a little peek behind the curtain about how this all comes together. And I said Elijah Badger, and I don't see how obviously John agrees, because I mean, if you look at his numbers, he was head and shoulders the best receiver on this team, especially not just physically but statistically. 65 catches, 713 yards, 3 touchdowns, and it really should have been more. He didn't play against U of A. He was banged up a lot of the year. John, you mentioned some of the injuries that he's been dealing with throughout the course of the year. He's going to need to get some procedures done before next year, but it does sound like he is coming back, which is a very good news. And hopefully ASU gets their quarterback situation straightened out, because they're going to have a heck of a target to throw to in 2024 in the form of Elijah Badger.
Yeah. I mean, I thought long and hard about this, because there are certainly some people who were, who played well every time they were on the field. Well, this Elijah in particular, he's a guy you have to stop, right? Literally, his number is on the bulletin board for the other team, saying you gotta cover this guy, you got to stop this guy. And
scout team guys are wearing his number on their jersey, because they need the defense to look to know what to look for.
Yeah, there was no doubt about that. He was the guy they were all trying to stop, and yet he still had found a way to get it done. And I think a good new offensive coordinator will find even more ways to get him into. I think Kenny kind of figured it out, that getting him the not just the ball in space, but getting him a running start before. Right, it is really important in the way he catches balls and the way he deals. But no, he could have a really big year this year, and he wants to have he needs a big year. He needs to be completely healthy in order to have a good combine. That's what his family is telling me. As he is right now, he is way too beat up to go to the combine. I'm not going to tell you the particulars, because that's private stuff. But
right.
But we should say a prayer for him, because he's looking at some procedures possibly. But yeah, great kid, and
definitely one of our favorites on the show. I mean, we picked him. We always do this, during the preseason, our predictions for the season. His name always comes up every single game we're recapping. It's usually Elijah Badger's name that comes up on our players of the game and whatnot. He's definitely an impact player. Certainly one that will factor into the offense's success, hopefully in 2024.
Right on. All right, MVP.
And then our offensive MVP. Now, player of the year tends to be the best player. MVP is, it stands for most valuable player, the value that they bring to the side of the ball that they're on. And I don't think any player was more valuable this year than Cam Skattebo. I list him as a running back. You got him as, kind of a Swiss Army knife. He really did play and do just about everything you could ask a football player to do. You look at his numbers. I mean, just, what he did, especially carrying the ball. He had 164 carries this year.
Yeah.
Next closest player, DeCarlos Brooks, had 48.
Yeah, you got to spread that around. That's why I
finished with 783 yards on the ground, 9 touchdowns. That's just rushing. Receiving, he was the team's third leading receiver, 24 catches, 286 yards, and a very memorable touchdown against USC. And passing, he was 6 of 15 on the year for that touchdown against UCLA to Elijah Badger that he threw. He did have 1 interception, but they asked him to do a lot this year, lining up, running that we call it the wild scat on this show. Yep. And no wildcat mentioned here. Anytime anybody's mentioned the wildcat, I was like, wild scat. That's what it is. And then they had him punt. They give the defense different looks by having him go out there and look like he was going to be lining up to take the snap on 4th down and then drop deep and punt it away. So a lot. They used Cameron Skattebo just about every way possible this year, and I felt like he responded and was such a big focal point of this offense.
I wanted to almost name this, instead of MVP, fan favorite, right? Because really, from the day he got here in spring ball I was at all the spring ball practice. He was going to be a fan favorite. Just the way how hard he ran, his lean, how strong his legs were. I didn't know he could throw. I didn't know he could punt either. I could just tell he was a good athlete.
I think that was the point of having him do it too.
Well, he bet on himself.
Didn't know either.
The guys who brought him down here, Bo Baldwin and the other guy from Washington State, knew him from playing at Sacramento State. They had seen him.
Sacramento, right?
Yeah, and he bet on himself. He says, I can play at the next level, and he sure proved it. So everybody's got to feel good about stories like that, right? Kid who bet on himself. Yeah, but
yeah, and prove that he could play with some of the best players in the country.
right.
And I mean, his numbers certainly dictate that. His value to this team certainly evident of that. So yeah,
And
hats off. Yeah,
I'm going to put out the Scat a Beast.
Yes,
I'm just going to say it right now, guys. If you or know anybody who's in a position to help a young man like this with his name, image, likeness, he's definitely worth looking into. Either to cut deals directly or do it right through the Sun Angel NIL Collective. But he wrote me this week and said, "What's going on?" I said, "There's a big meeting on Sunday. I'll tell you more about it at the banquet." So he wants to stay. He wants to stay.
He could be, he could be back next year. He's only a junior, so he's still got eligibility left. We could see more of the Scata Beast in 2024. I would certainly look forward to that. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what he does coming back next year. Hopefully with some upgraded pieces around him on offense. Right. And then our most improved player. This was a hard one because on offense there were some guys who had up and down seasons. They looked good at times. There were other guys who never really got going. That there were high expectations on. They never really lived up to them. One guy who kind of came out of nowhere for me was true freshman offensive lineman Sean Naa. And this was a guy who, kind of came out of a fairly big program in California. Wasn't super highly rated. He was only a 3-star by most of the experts. But what he did this year, St. John Bosco in Bellflower, which is one of the best high school programs in the nation. And he's a little bit undersized. 6'4", 275. But he was forced into service this year because of all the injuries on the offensive line and some of the inconsistencies. I felt like he managed himself very, very well. Yeah, he struggled. He took some lumps as a true freshman being forced into service like this. But my hat's off to him because I think felt like with every rep, with every game, he got that much better.
Didn't he play 4 positions on the O-line this year? It
felt like, he was moved around a lot. Anytime there was an opening, he was kind of the first guy up. He was the second, the backup at a couple different positions at different points in the season. So, when he stepped up and when he was given opportunities and being called into service, I felt like he did a tremendous job, especially with, again, I mentioned all the, injuries that they had along that offensive line, especially tackle. Tackle seemed like it was ravaged. Always somebody every other week. I mean, there were 3 guys who were basically done for the year by mid-season. And, Sean Naa, that kid stepped up, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does moving forward. I feel like he's going to be a cornerstone on this offensive line if he stays here and he stays healthy.
Getting
that kind of experience, be a big part of this team.
Getting that kind of experience as a freshman is irreplaceable.
Totally.
And the fact that he rose to the occasion and he grew and he got better tells you a lot. So again, this is where recruiting really, or assessment, is so critical. Where you see a kid like this and you go, I see a higher. The coaches get up on the table and they bang their fist and say, "This kid's got this kind of headroom or this kind of upside." And I'm glad you picked an O lineman because if you didn't, I would have. But I had to go to a skill player, and I went with Troy O'Meary. I thought got some opportunity. He took advantage of it. He had a few drops at key moments, but I saw him, getting better. And when the light bulb was on, it's quite bright. And I do think he's going to be he's going to contribute. He's going to contribute.
The thing I like about him is, first of all, he's a big red zone target first and foremost.
Yes.
And the fact that they were kind of force feeding him, they were looking for him, they were going at him quite a lot, giving him a lot of opportunities. I think speaks well for his capability. I think he's got some things he needs to work on. Yeah, his hands. I like for his size, I like to see him be a little bit more physical at the point of attack. Going up, attacking the ball. a little bit more. But those are things that you can kind of, you can coach into a kid. You can, that they can pick up with more reps. Like as he, continues to develop, and especially if he's playing on the other side of Elijah Badger, he's a guy that has got an opportunity to be, a big part of this offense as well. Especially if he kind of, continues to develop and improve. And I did see some improvement from him. They were he had that touchdown catch against Southern Utah, but yeah, it felt like it was one of the few guys on this offense that stayed healthy and managed to play. I think every game. He didn't always have the best numbers week in and week out, but he was out there. He was,
Yep.
they were looking for him. They were using him in this offense. And it felt like he, given opportunities, if he just gets a little bit more consistent and works on some of his technique, he can be a game breaker for this team.
Yeah, it was obvious that Badger was being keyed on, and you got to go sometimes where you go with what the defense gives you, and in those kind of situations, I thought he stepped up and did a nice job. So yeah, I'm looking forward to him to being around next year and making some more improvement. But yeah, that's
Definitely
most improved. So what's next? What do we got next? Newcomers.
Yeah, our newcomers of the year, and for me, it was running back to Carlos Brooks. Even in the short time that he was here, it seemed like every time he stepped on the field and he got the ball in his hands, he was making plays. He was, just very aggressive, very, a little, different type of player than Scattaboo. He just seemed like he, once he got the ball in his hands, he was going downhill. He was hitting the hole hard. Just doing a lot of things well. And, it was such a bummer that he only played about half the season.
Right.
That because it felt like if he was out there, this running attack would have been much stronger because, he does a lot of things well, but his biggest thing is he's a great power runner. He's not the biggest guy, he runs big. And that was big. And even though he had some nice numbers, even for 48 carries, 259 yards, and he had those three touchdowns all came against Washington State.
Yeah.
So yeah, he had that one big game, and then his durability was a bit of an issue this year. But if he does come back, I feel like this offense there's gonna have to be a big role for him, and certainly one that he can fill. If he can play in 12 games, he's gonna put up some nice numbers. I feel like because they're willing to they showed a willingness to feed him the ball and give him opportunities, especially playing on the field at the same time as Cam Scattaboo.
It's kind of interesting that none of these award winners are people who are being mentioned as portal guys, or you know what I mean. It's kind of like I don't know. I'm feeling good about this.
Reason for that is, and I'll be quick about this. I feel like we were kind of looking at core guys who we feel like were going to be here going forward, guys who made an impact and made enough of an impression that you want them here. You want them to be here going forward because you feel like they bring something to the table, and they're gonna just continue to get better and better, and they're gonna be a part of this team when they turn the corner and turn into a competitive and team that hopefully wins more than they lose.
Right. My this is a guy who just kept flashing, and it was hard at practice not to notice him. It was hard in the games. Not to, when he was in to not pay attention to him, but Caleb Black, I think, is going to be it is definitely worthy of being considered a newcomer of the year. And again, huge upside on this kid. But
as a true freshman, he didn't put up a lot of numbers,
no.
But he wasn't given a ton of opportunities either. Certainly like to see him get a little bit more, some more reps, some more time on the field, and I think that will come.
Yeah, they couldn't keep him off the field. That's the point. They had to play him.
Yeah, and once now you got guys. You got a guy like Geo Sanders graduating.
Yes,
that's a position that I feel like Caleb Black can step in and get some quality reps in. We'll see what happens with Melquan Stovall and Jake Smith going forward, but I absolutely believe that there's a role for Caleb Black on this team.
Oh, big time.
He's a guy with speed, athleticism. Certainly maybe not the biggest guy, but certainly one that has skills and attributes that make it hard to keep him off the field. So,
yeah, and I'm telling you, you practice well, you practice hard, you're going to play, and he's a good practice player. I'll tell you, folks. but that's just to my
And hey, he's a true freshman, so I
that's right.
mean,
Yeah.
there's certainly room for growth. There's room for improvement. There's
Mhm.
room for him to get on the field. And I feel like he keeps putting in the work the way he has.
Mhm.
That will happen.
Right. And there
Yeah.
was
So on to the defense, and we'll start with our player of the year.
come on,
Um,
talk nice
there we
to it.
there we go.
Talk.
And we both went to the secondary, specifically the safeties for this one. Um, for me, it was Shamari Simmons. I felt like
Mhm.
he was a guy that seemed like he was leading the team in tackles almost every week, and finished with 73 on the year to go along with 1 sack, 6 pass defense, um, an interception, and 2 fumble recoveries. The guy was just all over the field.
Yep.
It seemed like
Absolutely.
every
Right.
single game. He was the guy usually making plays, and I mean, he was fun to watch. He was hard to miss. Number 7, he's a pretty good sized guy, and
Mhm.
he just goes out there. He just goes out there every Saturday and finds a way to make an impact.
Mhm.
And he, you know,
Playmaker.
yeah,
Playmaker.
not the most, sometimes not the most consistent in pass coverage, but a sure tackler. Certainly somebody that he came up and when he came up in the box on run defense, he made
Yep.
some plays around the line of scrimmage,
There you
and
go.
definitely a fun player to watch.
Yeah. I can't argue with that choice. In fact, I probably should have gone with
I
it, but
can't argue with yours. Chris Edmonds had himself another nice year. He had a
yeah,
good last
not
year too.
the thing is, you cannot underestimate the leadership and the field general role this guy played out there, keeping those DBs together. I see him communicating like a senior should. And so yeah, he was instrumental. I think he helped keep that. Let's put it this way: had he not been out there, we would not have been. I mean, our defense, I think it was 55th in the country. That was the one that, that's one of the reasons why Brian Ward was extended, because it was obvious early on he had command of the game and was producing and keeping us in games. But no, Chris was essential to me. He was
Yeah,
and so yeah, that I had to go with Chris. And the thing is, I hope if you guys are going to the banquet this weekend, have a chance to talk to him. He is so articulate. He is so bright. He's going to represent the Sun Devils very well at wherever he goes in the next stage in life. He's going to be a great citizen. But neat kid.
yeah, and definitely one of my favorite players as well.
Hmm.
Certainly a just solid, great,
Hmm.
good solid football player, and definitely one that I think we're all proud to call a Sun Devil, because he certainly went about things the right way.
Hmm.
So moving on to our defensive MVP, I got to go with Travion Brown, the linebacker. I mean, he came in as a transfer
Hmm.
from Washington State, kind of followed defense coordinator Brian Ward here from Wazoo, and kind of figured he would make an impact. He was a guy who put up some nice numbers for the Cougars last year,
Right.
and yeah, he stepped in and played very, very well. He had that tough leg injury about mid-season, but bounced back and came in, and it just seemed like the defense was playing at another level when he was in the game. And he was another guy who was led by example, did a lot of things well. Especially in run defense, he's probably their best run defender
Right.
at the linebacking spot, and
Hmm.
53 tackles, a half a sack, an interception on the year. So filled up the stat sheet well, and just from what I think that his play kind of reverberated throughout the rest of the defense. When he was out there making plays, when he was flying around the ball, it seemed
Yep.
like everybody else was picking up their game to kind of match his.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of player that you want on
Oh,
this team. Now
he, he-
he's off to the NFL, and I say, sir, even though we only had you for a short time, he definitely made an impact while he was here.
he made McCullough and
Um,
Romney
yeah,
better just by you know the system and showing him how to be the example. I thought
lead by
that's
example. Absolutely, that was Travion Brown to a T. Yeah.
right, right. So again, I had I didn't look at yours. To me, I looked at numbers, and Shamari just jumped off the page for me this year in
Yeah,
terms of what his production. And like I say, he was all over the field, put in a lot of different situations. I do like when they would put him up in the box, he would make plays up on the line
well,
of scrimmage or
and
get
for
in the
this,
backfield.
when it comes to Shamari, we just disagree with how his importance to the team. I
Mm,
consider him the best player on the defense.
right.
You consider him the most valuable.
Hmm.
That doesn't necessarily mean either of us is wrong.
No, I mean, in the end, the ability to, he's got, there's a leadership quality I see, and that's coming along in him. So, yeah, good for him. I'm glad, and I hope he wins all kinds of hardware on Sunday.
Nice. I have
Yeah.
no doubt. I have no doubt. So moving on here to our defense, the most improved. And again, we
Yeah.
were in lockstep on this. Again, we did not collaborate before this. And it was just,
No.
it kind of left off the page at how good Caleb McCullough was this year, how much he improved
Hmm.
from not just from the beginning of this year, but from the beginning of his time at ASU.
Right.
He was
Right.
kind of buried on the depth chart at the linebacker spot. We weren't sure how much of the field he was even going to see this year with Travion Brown, Tate Romney. There were a couple other guys that we kind of looked at and said, "Hey, there's a guy who can go out and make an impact." Like a guy like James Joncom, Will Schaefer was still in the mix at the time. We weren't sure what to make of Caleb McCullough at the beginning of the year. And he's a guy who just came out, and I think there were a lot of naysayers like that who kind of wrote this guy off and basically said, "Hey, he's done. He's not going to be a part of this new staff. They're not going to like him. He's a holdover. They're not going to recruit him. He's going to quit. Before the season even starts." And he's a guy who went out, toughed it out, worked his way into the new system, and thrived. And that's the kind of football player that you want, a versatile guy like that who just goes out there regardless of what defense, what call is going on. Especially when Travion Brown went out, it seemed like Caleb
Right.
McCullough definitely raised his game, and he was the next man up in a big way. And he really filled up the stat sheet as well. 52 tackles, he's fourth on the team. He had a sack, two pass defense, and a forced fumble on the season. This is a guy who just goes out there and does it, lays it all on the line, gives
Yeah.
100% every single play. And
Well.
we didn't always necessarily see it, because he was buried behind guys like
Hmm.
like Darian Butler, like Merlin Robertson, so on and so forth. Once he got his shot, he was kind of moved into that starting lineup by necessity.
Yeah.
He responded in a big way, and
At, at
it was great to watch.
at camp, Doncom was clearly ahead of this guy.
Hmm.
um, and even Schaefer flash at times. But I'm going to say two things. One, I think his coach AJ Green deserves huge props for
Cooper.
finding Cooper. Excuse me, what did I say? Yeah, AJ Cooper figured out the hot button to push on this kid and found a
Yeah,
way to get in his head. And once the light bulb went on, it was like day and night, you know. That
yeah.
I love when coaches figure out a way to get to a kid and get the like make flip that switch. So he flipped the switch, and it just kept getting better all the way through the season. So props to Coach Cooper and to Caleb for putting in the work. But it was a great story. I thought this year was the way those two sort of worked together to get this thing done. So anyway, yeah, good
Very
kid. He's
true.
from
Very
he's from
true.
uh, he's
Yeah,
from uh,
and
he's from where I used to live in Oxnard, Ventura,
yeah,
area. I used to see him. I used to see him in high school.
yeah. And this is a guy I think we're all kind of expecting big things from, assuming he comes back next year.
Yeah.
But him and Tate Romney, kind of fill in the middle. Travion Brown's was moving on to the NFL. These are two guys who are kind of penciled in, I feel like, as the two
Right.
starting middle linebackers in this defense, and guys who are going to make an impact next year. So closing the book here with our newcomer of the year. And
Hmm.
for me, it was it was Deshaun Mallory, the
Hmm.
the transfer from Michigan State. This was that was a position of need on this team. That defensive tackle spot. We really weren't sure what to make of it coming into the year. The D line was kind of especially on the inside, was filled with question marks about who was going to step up, who's going to make a play. And Deshaun Mallory seemed like every single game he was making at least one game-changing play.
Yeah.
And just, I mean, from his ability to defend the run, to getting his hands up and knocking balls down. I think that kind of became his trademark. He had four
Hmm.
throughout the course of the year, and he had two sacks as well. So It's a guy who just, whenever he was given, he was given plenty of opportunities. He made the most of them. I mean, he wasn't really getting the playing time I think he feel like he deserved at Michigan State, and he came to Tempe and just became a big part of this defense this year from
Yeah.
his work in the middle of the field, especially as an interior D lineman. Being in the top 10 in tackles with 48, I think is very impressive. This type of defense, usually those kind of guys are just space eaters,
Right.
given supposed to be creating opportunities for guys next to them and behind them, and he went out there and did things himself,
He's
and
strong.
he was
He's
very
strong and
very fun to watch.
he's strong and fast and had good counter moves. I watched
Yeah,
his technique, and I think Vince Ami did a great job of coaching him up. Find it again. Figured out how to be an educator, find what it was that would make him great. And I'd say about the third or fourth game, things really started clicking for him.
oh yeah, big time.
Yeah. And mine was Tate Romney. I knew he was a capable player. I knew just from watching him play around here. Didn't really follow. I don't know if he wasn't given the shot he needed up at BYU, but man, he
Yeah,
is. But it's kind of a downhill straightaway guy. But there was a couple of plays this year where he moved laterally nicely.
yeah, and he's a
but
guy, especially now that they've got him in the system, and I feel like he's kind of adapted to it and kind of made
Mhm,
made that spot his own.
yeah,
Especially once him and McCullough were kind of playing together when
yeah,
Brown went out. They worked very well in tandem.
yeah.
That was really good to see. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do with a full year playing opposite of one another.
Right.
Like that's one part of this defense that's going to be sewn up, and it should be a strength of this team going forward.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Um, so keep your eye on,
So,
Tate. I think that the
yeah,
ceiling's high. The ceiling's high, and he's getting coached up here and given an opportunity to play in front of his family. And that's a
absolutely.
big family, by the way. You should see after the game how many
Oh
how
man.
many Romneys are
Oh
waiting for him.
gosh.
It's amazing. I love it, man. I love it. It's all about
That's
playing in
that's
front of the home
funny.
home crowd. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So, and then we kind of had our kind of collect the team awards
Mhm.
for the season, kind of our moments of the year, and for me, and our games of the year, and for me, it was a tie. I gotta go. It was tough to. It was too close to call. I gotta go with the win over Washington State.
Nice.
The way they responded, despite
Nice.
struggling on defense, I felt like the offense really came alive
Hmm.
and responded in that game, putting up 38 points on that team, especially after Cam Ward and company were coming in with all this hype. Um,
Hmm.
Even though they hadn't been ranked at the time, that was still a very very tough team, very strong offensively, and ASU came out and especially in the second half, they only gave up 6 points in the second half and
Right.
really took it to them. And that was a game. I think that's kind of a glimpse of the future for what this team could be
Hmm.
under Kenny Dillingham and Brian Ward. And the Colorado game, even though it was a loss, felt like that was a very exciting game. It was the atmosphere and the energy in the stadium was palpable. That was about as loud and excited as in the stadium as I've heard in quite some time. And that was a crazy game, especially with Colorado coming in with all that hype and what they were doing throughout the course of the season. That at that point in the season, I should say, you kind of knew that this game was going to be big, regardless of the outcome. And hey, ASU, I mean, they in the final minute, I mean, they were tied. It was like we were heading
Hmm.
for overtime. They had that defensive breakdown that ultimately led to the game-winning field goal for the Buffaloes. But still, a fun, exciting game that I feel like ASU is going to kind of use as bulletin board material going forward. Hey, they're going to see Colorado again in the Big 12 next year.
Yes, we are.
That's a game I feel like that they're going to want back and want they're going to do everything in their power to make sure it doesn't happen again.
It was
And
never a
that's the
great
kind of game you point to, 2, 3, 4 years down the
well,
road and say, hey, that's when it started. That's when
exactly.
when things changed, when the light came on, when we said, hey, this is not who we want to be. We want to be a team that finishes games,
Yeah.
and you can point to that game and say, that's we don't want to see that happen again.
No, I love the Washington State game in terms of the scoring, the defense, everything we did in that game. Colorado, you're right.
And also,
I,
I just want to point to that one more thing from that Washington State game. When Cam Ward ran a
mm,
touchdown and kind of like did one of these to right in front of me to the crowd, and it's just like, we gotta bury this guy. I
yeah,
mean, if he does something like that to the home crowd, I mean, we gotta just knock this guy around a little bit, and we did, We got after him extra hard, and
right.
that was so gratifying to see after him kind of showing off and showboating the way he did, on a team that had lost 3 games in a row going into that one.
Yeah.
So
Colorado, I'm just going to say thank you, Colorado, for allowing us one more sellout that we wouldn't have had in years past. Right? We packed away some more
if
some
nothing else, yeah, we can take
much.
that from that game
Well,
as well.
and if Dion's still around in the cup next time we play him, great. We'll make even more revenue out of the deal. But but it was a circus. Let's face it. They didn't really play defense this year, and you could almost see it from the very first. They got. I looked in when I saw they beat TCU. That was a team. TCU was not the same team that played in the national championship.
No, no,
And
they graduate. They graduate a lot of guys. I mean, you could
yeah,
tell this year too. I mean, they only won 4 games this year, so I mean, yeah, it was not the same team.
no, and I
And yeah,
think that's what set it.
Colorado. I mean, yeah, they got some problems. They got some things that I think are only going
Yeah,
to get a little bit worse with time. That there's a crack. There's a divide there,
yeah.
and it's only going to get wider unless Dion kind of wises up and doesn't try and gloss over it like
Well,
he does everything else.
the lesson from Colorado is you cannot portal your way into having too good an offensive and defensive line.
Oh,
It doesn't happen. There's no precedent for it. So,
yeah, the way they got after Shedeur Sanders, I feel
right.
like that was good to see. That showed what this team was capable of.
I can't help but think that will become more of a with the some of the Southern California teams gone now, that this will become a bigger rivalry too. I mean, the natural rivalry to me, the biggest rivalry I think we're going to have going into this new conference, quite frankly, I think it's going to be Oklahoma State, just because of the way they win, the way that how well they're playing now. But that's going to be we're going to have to set ourselves to that bar, and I think it's going to be a great rivalry. I think this
Yeah, and the
Colorado
fact
will
that
be.
we played them as close as we did the last 2 years,
Yeah, yeah.
didn't come out on the winning side. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's certainly a team that you point at and say, hey, that's a team that is going to be the class of this new conference, this new reformatted Big 12, and certainly one that we need to kind of get on the same level of if we expect it to be successful.
So I picked UCLA, and it was for several reasons. One, we rebounded so nicely after the Utah drubbing, right?
Oh
That
yeah,
was the first thing. Two, number one in innovation, right? We came up with a scheme to protect our quarterback
oh
that
man,
because of that great D line, the rush that they had to save Trenton from getting thrown to the wolves. As
Polak,
what did Kenny call them? They called them fire breathing dragons, and he
Firing
was
Dragon.
yeah.
Yes,
So
yes.
we took
And
that
that,
away
yeah,
from him.
that Laiatu Latu
Whew,
might be the first pass rusher off the board
I can see
in the
why.
spring.
I
He
can see
he
why.
looks like a pro pass rusher
Yeah.
and a guy that can affect the game in every way. So
And it
yeah,
wasn't
and
just
that's a fitting description because
right.
he is a scary looking player.
And we went into that game with 14 players injured. That's unprecedented for us. And I know there's people out there on the boards who want to chirp at the strength and conditioning coach. Guys, he's been here too long with too many administration. This is not a strength and conditioning issue. If you really look at broken bones, turned ankles, this is not a strength and conditioning thing. But UCLA to me was my favorite game of the year because it was a complete weird game. I love defensive battles,
Yes, it was.
but I love defensive battles, quite frankly, and the fact that we did what we had to do to win on offense, and we played lights out. We gave 7 points. Yeah,
Yeah,
17
and
7.
I mean, it was a weird game for both teams, frankly. UCLA was coming in, having just um, had a tough game against U of A the week before. They
Right,
were playing without their top 2 quarterbacks.
right.
Um,
Yep.
they were trying to, basically they threw the Kent State transfer out there who really hadn't thrown the ball, was not much of a thrower.
Yeah, the sidearm.
Decent runner, but not the best passer
Right,
at
right.
quarterback. And he, he struggled, but hats off to our defense because that UCLA's strength was in their rushing attack,
Right.
and way ASU was able to, have those goal line stand, those fourth and goal stands were huge,
Right.
and that's certainly a hallmark game for the defense and for the staff and the players
Right.
to say, hey, this is we were able to enforce our will on a team and not let them play their game.
Right.
We can do that with this team. We can do it with anybody. And I think that's the attitude that you kind of have to adopt
Yeah.
going into this Big 12 schedule when you got some of these teams that can move the ball in a lot of different ways. They can put points
Right.
up on the board in a lot of different ways, especially with you got
Iowa State, Kansas State.
Iowa
Woo!
State. You got Baylor looks like they're going to be
They're coming back.
Some of the coaching transfers, some of the coaching changes that they made. They added the Cal offensive coordinator Spavital as the new offensive coordinator at Baylor.
Right.
That guy just succeeds everywhere he's been. So he's going to put points on the board. They're going to have to. This defense is going to have to find ways to be successful and to have an impact, much like they did against UCLA. And I mean, I know the circumstances weren't ideal for the Bruins, given everything that was going on coming into that game, but it was still ASU, especially with the players that they had out. They had to find a way to not just generate offense, but also get a way to hype up their defense. And they found a way to do that. And I think that's something that they can hang their hat on. Hopefully they'll be able to repeat that formula going in.
And I just love the fact that the most innovative coach in the last 20 years in college football, Chip Kelly, we managed to out-innovate him. I just thought, what a great story.
That's very true.
What a great way.
Gotta love that.
Yeah, that was just so even though a lot of people want to flesh all this out of their mind this season, there were some real bright spots, folks. Really,
there were some very bright spots. Certainly, some things that you can say. You can go into the next year or two and say, hey, we did this, we did that, we did.
Right.
You mentioned laying the groundwork.
Yeah.
Close losses lay the groundwork. Look at the 1995 ASU Sun Devils. Some of their games that they had that were they were like one or two plays away from winning. I mean, I remember that game up in Seattle against the Huskies.
Right.
They had, they were just some freak random plays that happened that kept them from beating a Husky team that was ranked in the top 10, I think at the time. ASU was clearly the better team playing, the better team, and they couldn't, just couldn't buy a break with some of the things that were going on. And so that's the kind of thing that, you kind of learn from, you move on from, and you become a better football team because of.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll even mention the Washington game because our defense, that was another great defensive performance against one of the best teams in the nation. The Huskies are undefeated right now. They're playing for a chance to go to the college football playoff this weekend against Oregon, and ASU held them to not to single digits because they threw a pick six.
Right.
They held them to less than 10 points as a defense. You tell me you can't. As a team, you can't look at that game and say, "Hey, we did that. Let's go out there and do it again."
I'm going to make the case, Ryan, that game and how Penix was exposed and really out schemed. At the time, I thought Penix was probably maybe number one for Heisman, and Bo was right there, and Jaden Daniels 3. I think everything flipped after that game for a lot of people in terms of his production and what happened in that game, in terms of just completely getting shut down, and it made him a one-dimensional team. So good, I still don't think. We won't talk about Heisman. I don't want to go there yet. I don't want to go there.
Well, we are an ASU show. We will mention some national stuff going on, but we don't need to talk about that LSU kid. We talked about him enough when he was here.
Listen,
let's focus on who's here and who's not.
I'm just going to say this:
not on who isn't.
Or if Oregon has a chance to regather and play Washington twice, I think they're going to figure it out.
Oh, that's why, when we were talking about U of A potentially going to the championship game last week, I was like, Friday, Oregon's not losing. I
No,
called it. I said they were
no,
not losing because
no.
they want a shot at another shot at Washington, and they're
Right.
going to
That's
get it on
right.
Friday.
Tomorrow
And
night.
that's going to be a heck of a game. I don't know
Yeah.
about you, but I am not missing that one. That's going to
No,
be a heck of a game.
I'm really looking forward to it. But I say you give a team like Oregon another shot at them, and
Oh yes,
I think it's I think that they may prevail, and I think it puts Bo Nix on the podium, or
especially when you look
he
at
gets hard,
how,
he gets the
especially when you look at,
hardware.
yeah, yeah, certainly. But let's look at how Washington played against the Cougars, their rival, last
Yeah,
weekend.
yeah,
They, probably should have lost that game.
yeah,
To be perfectly honest, there
yeah.
were some plays, that go the other direction, and I mean, yeah, the Washington's still playing for the Pac-12 championship, but they're not playing for a playoff spot because
That's
if
right.
they lost, oof,
Yeah,
look
I
out.
mean, you can make a case that we well anyway. I'm not gonna. I like Penix. I think he's going to be a great
Oh
pro.
yeah,
I like Bo. I think he's going to be a great pro. I still
ooh,
think Jaden Daniels is going to be very light, and it's going to. I don't think he's going to. He's not going to be
going up
durable.
against NFL defenses,
Oh Lord,
you
no,
cannot scramble like he
no,
does.
no. He's
NFL defenses are a whole nother animal.
well. We saw
When
the
they
one.
pin, when they
We
pin
saw
their ears back and come after you, you're not going to be able to shimmy shake your way unless you're Michael Vick, and Jaden is
well.
not.
You saw
He's
Jaden
not
take
going to be
that
able to
one.
shimmy
What
shake his way out of trouble.
was it? Alabama. He tried to jump over a kid, and the kid stuck him in the chest, and he got knocked out. He was
Yep,
concussed.
I remember we were at the
That's
hockey game when that
That's
happened.
never
I
going to
remember.
happen. You try that in the pros, your career's over. It's over. Sorry. He's going to have to change his game. And I know he
So
liked.
yeah, and I really don't see. I mean, we're doing we're doing what we said we wouldn't, and we're talking about Jane Daniels right
No
now.
Heisman. No Heisman.
Turn us off before we go too far because we've already
Put
gone
us out
back
of
on
our
what we said we wouldn't do.
put us out
But
of our misery.
I've talked about this with my dad a few times. Because he watches a lot of college football, and he said Jane Daniels not doing. He'll go to the pros,
Yeah.
but he should be holding a clipboard for at least the first year.
Oh yeah.
Do not go out there and expect him to be a barn burner from year one. Yeah, he's proved himself everywhere along the way. We said he wouldn't do anything against SEC defenses. He's proven us wrong, certainly, as far as that goes. But yeah,
He
I
had
mean,
a. Let's face it.
if you're
He had
looking at
a.
him, if nothing else, he'll at least be the Heisman runner-up. And he should
He had a
finish second in
great.
the Heisman.
He had a great offensive line compared to what he had here, guys.
Yeah, and some
Markedly improved.
some better, some very good skill position
Skill.
guys, I
Yeah,
would say.
absolutely.
So I mean, yeah, he's had a great year. But everybody else had a great staff around him. So we'll see how things go, but I honestly don't see him doing much at the next level, and we'll leave it at that. So that'll do it for us this year. Oh, I'm sorry, I got one more. We got one more, of course, our play of the year. And for me, I mentioned it earlier in the show, but you certainly got to mention it again. And if you haven't seen it, oh, you got to go back and watch it because it was such a phenomenal play. Cam Scadaboo's touchdown catch and run against USC, where he, basically ran over a couple of guys down the sideline on his way. I still don't know how he kept his feet. When
It
that
was.
guy got low on him, he
Yeah.
just kind of shook him off, kept put his hand on the ground and kept going.
Great balance.
And
Balance. Yeah.
yeah, that was probably one of the craziest things I've ever seen a college player do. I still cannot believe he kept his feet and managed to take it all the way to the end zone
Yeah,
there.
little Barry Sanders in him, man.
Oh man, that's probably the only other guy I've ever seen get like that low and
Yeah.
and still manage to keep his balance.
That's right.
I mean, it helps that Cam, he's built like a bowling ball. He just kind of shift his weight a little bit and stay upright. But I just that was probably one of the best plays I've ever seen a player make. And that one, that's a highlight reel play, and certainly one that ASU fans remember for a long time.
It electrified the crowd. It got the defense jacked up.
That's up there with the Cam Marshall hurdle against US. We came in a losing effort. It was still a play that you go back and look at and say, wow.
Yeah.
To this day.
Well, Cam's special. I picked it again, the UCLA game. He's playing quarterback. I never expected this in a million years. He rolls to his right, and it was mostly torso, but he did plant his feet and he cranked one back to his left, and he perfectly laced it into to Badger, and that I think that was that our first score or second score? I can't remember. I think it was the first score.
That
No,
was the
second
first score. That was the
Right.
first score because
Right.
then he had a run.
A run. So he had
late in the
he
fourth
scored
quarter
two ways. Yes.
that sealed the game.
Right.
That was the second score. So yeah, that was the
Right.
first one that kind of got us on the board.
Yeah. I just thought it wasn't just, Cams tended to, several balls this year were sort of like these lollipops over the top. They were sort of like dropping, right? This thing was a frozen rope, man. He threw it really well in there. Like, whoa.
Yeah, and hats off to Elijah Badger too, kind of boxing out the DB and just bringing it into his body, making sure he caught it.
He's done that more than once.
That was really well done.
He's got that ability to turn his body and kind of not let the guy make the play. You're right, box out. That's a good way of putting it. And then make a body catch. Even though he's capable of making hands catches and high pointing balls.
But great receivers can catch the ball in different ways. It doesn't have to be just put over here, put over there, put right here. They can catch it wherever, as long as it's thrown in their vicinity, they can go up and come down with it. Right. I think that's really what you're looking for, and that's Elijah Badger to a T.
I just think it's interesting that but both plays of the year involved the same guy. And again, we did not script this, folks.
Well, yeah, and but I mean, the guy just went out there and made plays. Even on a bad team, they found ways to get him the ball and let him go out there and just do what he does. And I think that's the biggest thing. It was just just find a way to get Cam the ball as much as possible, and good things were going to happen. And for the most part, they did. When he was pressed into service, playing the wild scat quarterback, he performed. When he was asked to go out there and win the game with his feet, run out the clock, get hard, tough yards for first downs, he did that too. And hey, he was a red zone machine. 10 total touchdowns on the season. So, I mean, just the guy, he's a football player, plain and simple. He's a guy who goes out there, finds ways to get it done, regardless of what the coaches ask him to do. And I could rail on and on about about Cam Scatterbo and what he's meant to this program this year, but I think his play on the field certainly shown that, and the heart and toughness that he played with, and that's what you want out of all your players. That's what you want out of a Sun Devil, and that's Cam Scatterbo.
Yep, we're very fortunate. I'm really counting on the fact that he'll be back, and that we're going to. I think there's a whole bunch of boosters are working on trying to make sure he gets some NIL money to stay here.
Yeah,
I'm not spilling the beans. I'm just telling you there's something up right now, folks.
Okay.
And I'm just glad I get to participate. But let's wrap it up here with
yeah, definitely. And we'll put a bow on this season. And definitely one, it had some moments, but one that we certainly like to forget, just from a record standpoint, certainly would like to see more wins. But it was the first one in Kenny Dillingham, and he kind of inherited a mess. And I think he did the most that he could with it, certainly considering all the other factors, injuries, guys being declared ineligible, guys transferring mid-season, a lot of twists and turns that come to be expected with a head coach in most programs in their first year. So we still felt like he did a great job and certainly laid a foundation for a quality football program going forward, and certainly one that we're going to continue to watch and support. And we can't wait to see you guys in 2024.
Yeah,
we'll be bringing everything that we know to the as far as the game, our opinions and what we see, what we hear, and we're looking forward to sharing it with you guys week in and week out come next fall. But we'll certainly we'll try to come back to you in the spring after spring ball, give you our musings on what we've seen in spring practice as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the next time you'll see us, but we look forward to seeing you then. So for Big John, I'm the Rhino. Say good night. Go Devils. Works up. See you next year.